Nikola, večeras navikli ste nas na jako efikasnu igru u klaču posljednjih godina. Večeras su Clippersi bili uspešniji, su nam više problema napravili u odbrani ili u napadu u završnim minutima?
Pa oni su opet dali 105 pojena za takvu neku ekipu što imaju takav arsenal ofanzivni. Mislim da smo koliko toliko je Kawhi odigrao stvarno jednu fenomenalnu utakmicu što jeste, on je stvarno super zvezda.
We haven't gone back to past. This was just a clip from my visit to Denver a couple of weeks ago after game 2 of the Clippers series. So just forget about it. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 141 of the world's longest tenured Denver Nuggets spin-off podcast. Welcome to the DNVR Nuggets' Serbian Corner. My name is Miroslav, and before we begin, please let me remind you to like the video on YouTube, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the DNVR Sports YouTube channel and the DNVR Nuggets podcast channel. The audio version is perfect for your commute or to make your office/home office time more bearable. If you want to support the show more directly, you can become a Patreon supporter at patreon.com/MiroslavCUK, just like my Seco tier supporters Peter Plummer and Daniel Lynch. Patreon supporters enabled me to travel to Denver a couple of weeks ago, and I can't thank them enough. Okay, let's run through the recap real quick. The OKC series. So game 1, the Nuggets started well, but the Thunder quickly took over the lead and held it for the entirety of the game. In fact, the first lead the Nuggets got was 2.6 seconds before the end, when Aaron Gordon got a pass from Russell Westbrook in transition and sank a three-pointer, even though the Thunder were up only 1 point. Coach Mark Dagnall didn't take a timeout because he was out of them after wasting all of them while calling for a large number of dumb fouls while being up 3 late. David Adelman almost prevented the comeback by subbing out Nikola Jokic with 10 seconds to go, but aforementioned Dagnall saved the day for the Nuggets. A surprising win for a team on no rest against the big favorite who was playing checkers for 10 days, waiting for the Nuggets and Clippers to end their battle to the death. Oh yeah, and Joker had 42, 22, and 6. I guess that's worth mentioning as well. Game 2. When I say no notes, it usually means something was perfect. Well, this game wasn't perfect unless you're a Thunder fan. I had no notes because the Nuggets got blown out so thoroughly I didn't even watch the second half. Woke up at 3:30 a.m. to watch my Nuggets fall down 24 points after the first quarter. The only thing I do remember from that first half was thinking that only Russell Westbrook and Aaron Gordon played hard. 1-1 in the away games, not bad at all, to be fair. Game 3, J-Dub had 32 points and Joker was 8 of 25 from the field, which was repeatedly mentioned by a very pedantic Mark Jones on the ESPN broadcast, so naturally the Nuggets won in overtime by 9 points. What my guy Mark didn't mention once was that SGA was 7 of 22 and had 3 points in the fourth quarter in overtime. How did the Nuggets win with the Joker missing all of his 10 threes, you ask, my dear listener? Well, 3 other Nuggets had 20-plus points, with Jamal leading the way with semi-efficient 27, and Aaron and Mike both shooting above 60% from the field. Mike made some insane, heavily contested threes and had some impressive rebounds, and Aaron was extremely clutch again, making a game-saving 3 late in the regulation and also locking up everybody in his way. Jamal hit a couple of circus layups, reminding us of his bubble version. Nuggets up 2-1 with Game 4 in about 23 hours at the Ball Arena. Okay, I locked my guess for this week early, before Game 3, so I would make sure it wouldn't be a bunch of fair weather guests. First, a basketball coach and the Nuggets angled draft expert, a zone defense aficionado, calling from the city of John Travolta, Queen Latifah, Whitney Houston, Shaquille O'Neal, and Brendan Vogt from New Jersey, New York. It's City Fazio. Welcome back to the show, City.
Hey, Miroslav, how you doing? Thanks for having me on. That's a great intro. You really outdid yourself with that one.
I was looking at the famous people from New Jersey, man, and you share a city with some pretty big names, yeah, including Brandon Vogt, I guess. He should be mentioned there. How are you?
He's the biggest one. I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on. Always great coming on Serbian Corner, and especially after a game like that last night. Pivotal game 3 win. Hyped to talk with you guys about it and break it down.
We definitely caught a lucky break just before the show to talk about a great game. Next, one of my favorite writers, period, sports or not sports. You have my permission to stop this show and go read his column on DNVR.com from yesterday, where he mentioned that only wins count in the playoffs and the point differential makes zero impact. He is an a cappella singer and a trombonist calling from the birthplace of NBA player James Johnson, international basketball player Marcus Bailey, and Bleacher Report's Andy Bailey, Cheyenne, Wyoming. It's Mike Olson. Welcome back, Mike.
Thank you. I wasn't sure you'd have a list that long from Cheyenne, Wyoming, so I'm impressed. You've done some research today, buddy.
I did my best, and it's great that we both know Andy, and Andy often mentions his brother Marcus, who used to play in Europe for a couple of years. So yeah, that's a nice connection for us.
Very cool.
How are you doing, Mike?
I am well. It's a beautiful day here in Cheyenne, Wyoming, which is something we don't get to say very often. First off, and it's an even prettier day after a Nuggets win, even a narrow Nuggets win. 2-1 feels a lot better than 1-2 was gonna if we talked about it.
Exactly. And last but not least, he's been Bucket since '88, a co-host of the Four Corners Denver Nuggets podcast, known as an appreciator of Michael Porter Jr.'s all-around game, calling from the hometown of Jewel, that's a singer, Ambrose Olson, and Jakob Netsvetov from Homer, Alaska. It's Peter Plummer. Welcome back to the show, Pete.
Hey, what's up, Miroslav? Thanks for having me back. It's a beautiful day here in Alaska. I just got my summer tires on. Always good to talk to you. I honestly, at this point of the year, I thought we'd be talking Nuggets off season, but somehow the boys have decided to dig deep and decide they still want to play basketball.
So, what's the temperature right now up there?
It's a nice and dry 51.
51, yeah. Okay, I have no idea what that means, but yeah, I guess that's better than 41. I'll just leave it at that. Okay, guys. Amazing game last night. After game 2, it looked pretty bad. It looked the Nuggets were just outgunned by a great, well-prepared team with a lot of young talent ready to play their asses off both on offense and defense. But then we saw something I was thinking about before this series started, is just the fact we always mention how amazing of a point difference the Thunder had this season. Historic defense, one of the greatest offenses as well. 68 wins, amazing. But then again, regular season means that a team that plays the hardest of them all will collect the most wins, especially if they have enough talent, of course. And the Nuggets were just a team that was discombobulated. Is that the word? I'm sorry if I'm doing it wrong. For a big part of this season, ended up with 50 wins this year. Was it 50 or 51? I want
50.
to be
50.
Yeah. So it seemed like a huge difference between the two teams, but now in playoffs, when everybody plays hard and the games slow down a bit, and the refs swallow their whistles a lot, some things change. So let's start with CT. What did you see from last night's game?
I think there's a lot of takeaways from last night, but especially I think it was the other guys, other than Jokic. They were able to really step up and just for some context with Jokic, I mean, this is back-to-back playoff series where he's facing elite defenses, going against the Clippers and Zubac and Kawhi and all those guys, where it was really tough challenge, to really try to navigate and dissect that defense. And going to the Oklahoma City Thunder, an all-time team, a great defense with Hardenstein and Chet And then, they have a bunch of other dynamic wing defenders as well. But, I think it's taken Jokic some time to really try to dissect the defense and try to get comfortable. Game 1, of course, was phenomenal from Jokic, but game 2 and 3 have been a little bit more of a struggle. But I think from last night, I mean, just when you bury Michael Porter Jr., he comes out and has 21 points, 8 rebounds, 5 of 6 from 3, ultra efficient night. And then you look at, the contributions from Aaron Gordon on both ends of the floor. And I thought Jamal Murray was the best player for Denver last night. A guy in the clutch, navigating that 2-man game. His defense on the stretch, I thought, in the fourth quarter and in overtime was phenomenal. They were really, really targeting him in isolations, and he really held his own down the stretch. I thought his decision-making, which I've been pretty critical of over this playoff stretch, has been really good last night. Whether that was getting into the paint, finding Jokic in the pocket, or finding, Mike and AG for corner threes, or Christian for cuts. I just thought Jamal and MPJ and AG, I thought those guys really stepped up, in a pivotal game 3 to take back control of the series. And I think those guys, deserve a bunch of respect and credit. But I thought Jokic on the stretch too was really good in that overtime, as far as, getting his offense to go a little bit, and defensively was, really rebounding the ball. And I just thought down the stretch, like the Nuggets, their execution really stood out against an Oklahoma City team that's a bit inexperienced as far as, what Denver's been able to kind of accomplish over the last couple of years.
Mike, I'm going to put you on the spot. This season, the Nuggets looked like a team where Nikola Jokic was, everything for them. Their entire offense, putting a huge scoring numbers, assist numbers, rebounding numbers. Everybody else was in the background for the entire season. There was a stretch where Russell Westbrook was the second guy. There was a stretch where Christian Brown was the second guy. Of course, Jamal Murray. Aaron Gordon, not so much, because he wasn't really healthy for most of the season. But now we are seeing a game where Nikola is the fourth guy on the scorer list for the Nuggets, and having a very, very inefficient night just didn't matter, because everybody else contributed so massively to a win. What happened?
There was also a stretch during the season that Mike was the second guy, and it was a decent little stretch of time too. And I think
Yes.
I think a lot of those guys gutted moments out through the season. I think you needed Joker to be that through line through the season, where everybody's having their ups and downs. Jamal's playing his way into shape. Mike is playing his way through an eventual injury. AG never got straight through the season, but seems to have saved himself for a postseason that really matters. Man, he's having a heck of a time, and I think to exactly the point you were just making, Miro, and kind of to put a fine point on what CT was saying as well. You've got 4 guys who were north of 20 points last night. That's a huge something, right? I actually think that Joker playing a bad game is somewhat overblown. I think the 0 for 10 from 3 was terrible. I think the rest of his game looked pretty solid to me still last night. And so to have him be the fourth guy behind a rejuvenated AG, who has certainly written a different story about himself this season. Mike has always had a reputation as not being much of a tough guy. I think he's sure changing that, playing through an arm and a half, basically, in the way he's played in several of these games through this postseason now. Jamal was his unconscious self last night, happily, and you've got these folks who can come in and then offer up these sorts of games where Joker still puts up 16 boards. You've got 2 forwards who put up another 16 boards. If I remember right, your 2 guards after that throw up another 11 boards. We were playing 5 guys on the floor, trying each of them to dominate their positions, and I think we showed up in total last night. It was great to see.
Pete, am I overreacting if I say that the Thunder definitely have the better 15 guys than the Nuggets, but the Nuggets might have a better starting 5 than a 68-win Thunder?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think it's all about context, right? Because ideally they say in a 7-game series, the best team's going to win. Well, I was listening to podcasts and people were still saying going into game 7 against the Clippers that the Clippers are the better team, but the Nuggets might win the series. Like Bill Simmons literally said that. So it's like, okay, what would you rather be? Like, I'd rather just win. So, I mean, the Thunder were great for 82 games. It doesn't matter. Like, it's 0-0 when you start in the playoffs. So, yeah, the Nuggets stole game 1. I've seen Thunder fans online saying they should be up 3-0. Well, you should, but your coach decided to foul, like, sorry. This is why we love sports. This is why we love seeing what's actually going to happen when somebody's in your way that doesn't want you to succeed, and that's one of the things I really enjoyed about this playoff run so far is, I'll be honest, like I was pretty pessimistic this year because I didn't know these guys still had it in them. I knew they had the talent, but did they have the want to? And so I'm honestly going to say, like, I'm kind of pissed off that it took firing Michael Malone for them to do this, because even if you want to say like it's the right move, they tuned him out, but what he was preaching was still right. Like, he basically told us they stopped listening to him and stopped playing defense. That game they played, the defensive game they played in game 7 against the Clippers, we haven't seen them play defense like that all year. Like, I understand why Michael Malone was frustrated. So it's refreshing to see that they can do this, but it's also a bummer that it took this long. So I don't know. I think it's kind of like outdated to just look at the records and say, well, OKC won 68 games, the Nuggets won 50 games. We know what the core of this team is, right? Like, say what you want about Mike and Jamal and AG, like none of them ever made an all-star team, but those guys are not afraid. Not a single one of those guys is afraid to take and make a big shot. And they did last night, all 3 of them. And so I was really proud to see that. And I think OKC has they just have more questions. I think when you like, Matt Moore always says this, right? When you get to the playoffs, like, your flaws get exposed. And so the Thunder, they don't really, like, what they've been doing all year has worked, right? So if Shea's not getting the calls, he's got to figure out how else he's going to beat you. And, they still got time to figure it out. So I'm fascinated to see how they respond in game 4.
Okay, we're going to take a short break because Pete just inspired me to go straight to my burning question I didn't share with you before the show. So don't go anywhere. It's going to get spicy. Okay, we are back. So Pete mentioned that he was a bit disappointed that the Nuggets took so much time to start playing a real basketball, the basketball they're capable of. And one question that's been in my mind for the past month almost, because we've seen almost from game 1 under David Adelman that the Nuggets just started playing more connected, more engaged, more with more joy. The question that I'm asking myself is, what if the Nuggets did the move before the start of this season? What if they fired Michael Malone and Calvin Booth last July? Would we see the same Nuggets right now, or do you think we would be seeing something a bit different? CT.
I think that's an interesting question, because the timing of this move was very, I would say, pivotal. Going into the playoffs, like a couple games right before the playoffs, the Nuggets, quote unquote, like actually did flip a switch. When you look at it, their defense locked in, playing more connected, and that was a complaint that I had all year. Is just the team lacks fundamentals. They wouldn't box out, they wouldn't communicate defensively. All pretty simple, you would think, easy, basic, understandings of how to play basketball, and they weren't doing that. I think maybe if they started this a little earlier, when Josh had said maybe if they fired Malone and Booth at the All-Star break, maybe that quote unquote flip of the switch would have happened earlier. But I think it's no doubt that the Nuggets are rejuvenated. They have a belief in each other again. It seems like, for sure. And I think when it comes to coaching, I think coaching matters a lot more than it used to in the past. And if you just look at micromanaging rotations, you look at the challenge, challenges in the game, timeouts, locker room dynamics, I just think at this time, like, I think Adelman is really doing a great job of pushing those buttons at this time. And I have, immense respect for Malone and what he's been able to accomplish and contribute to Denver, and they wouldn't be here without him. But I do think at this time, maybe that change did, I would say, have a really big effect on the team. And I think we're seeing it right now. I mean, the Nuggets were counted out pretty much the whole year of trying to make this a successful season. And now they're up 2-1 against, I would say, one of the better teams of the modern era in the regular season. So they have a chance at going back to the championship, I'd say. It's definitely there for the taking. You don't want to, put it too far ahead. They still have to beat Oklahoma City, but I do think the moves definitely did have an effect as far as and also too, I think the dynamic between Malone and Booth probably had an effect on the rest of the team as far as the dynamic of their relationship was concerned, and the back and forth. I think that definitely does wear on you as time goes on. So I think there's kind of been like a bit of a weight lifted off their shoulders from at least the inner dynamics of the team for sure.
Mike, I swear to you, I'm not making fun of your age. You've seen so many coaches come and go on the Nuggets. Was this special compared to all the other coaches' tenures and removals?
I mean, winningest coach in history, and the one who brought us a ring. Yeah, it stung a little more, for sure. But I think I liked Mike amongst the best out of all of them. I think that it was tough to see him go. It seems as if it has inspired, much to what Nicola said, the changes that they were looking to make. It seems to have made that inspiration. You asked the question about whether or not it would be before the season, or if it was before the season, if it would have had the same effect. I wonder if it was before the season, if they would have actually let both of them go. But where I do think that DA has really hit on something, and where I think I've heard several of the players say sometimes it feels like we need these sorts of challenges, we need these sorts of things. They talk like a group that needs to be engaged at times, needs to feel that spark. And I think what DA has landed on in all of this, that he has repeated time and again, is that he gets all of the guys communicating, he gets all of the guys talking, and when that's happening, they don't have much choice but to get engaged in what's going on, to take ownership both of what they're doing wrong, but also to, really get themselves in the spot that they need to be a part of the solution about making it right. That might have worked all season, or that might have worn itself out as the season went on, but it's sure working right now.
Pete, your shades tell me you're gonna come in hot on this question.
Yeah, I mean, no, they're absolutely right. And, to piggyback off what Mike said, I think I got an analogy for you, but don't worry, I promise it's not a football analogy.
Oh, so disappointed.
Yeah. I think, sometimes whether you're in school or at work and, it's a new job or new class and you have to learn how to do it, there's different approaches to teaching, right? Sometimes you have the person that just does it for you. And then they're like, okay, look, I showed you how to do it. Now you do it. And sometimes there's the person that isn't going to do that. They're going to make you find it on your own way a lot harder. And I think that's the difference between Adelman and Malone. We heard Malone for years talk about like Jokic has to be a leader. Jokic has to step up more. I think he tried that, but it does seem like Adelman's voice is not just loud, but like it doesn't carry as much weight, maybe. I mean, I'm not saying they don't respect him, but he's been very encouraging to all the players, like, hey, talk to each other. So, yeah, in a weird way, I'm not trying to say that Malone had the wrong approach. I just think he's kind of a victim of like, once you know one way, that's all you really know, right? Like you can't teach an old dog new tricks. So I just kind of think like that Malone was the voice that was needed for a young team learning how to win, learning how to grow up. And we thank him for everything. I still think he's like a great coach, best coach in Nuggets history. But I also understood that, it was maybe time for some new blood. And I think Adelman has helped in that regard. And then I think there's also one other area that I think was sort of a stroke of genius from Josh Kroenke making this move when he did is, you started the segment by asking, would they have the same effect at the beginning of the year? And it's a tough question to answer because we can't know. But I think one thing people never talk about when it comes to experience being a positive or negative is the other side of that coin, which is when you're inexperienced as a player in the playoffs, you don't know any better, right? So sometimes that can be good because you're just like, oh, I don't know I'm supposed to hit that shot, right? And as a coach, I think there's a little bit of like, there's no tape on this guy, right? If he would have been coaching all year, other coaches would have been able to adjust to Denver, I think maybe a little better. But he's definitely thrown some wrinkles here and there that have just kind of been like on the fly. So, you know, some people have said, yeah, like he was the offensive coordinator before, it wasn't going to change that much. But when you're an assistant coach, you don't have really the power to change stuff. You know, now that he's the head coach, he can try stuff, and he's been trying it, right? Sometimes it hasn't worked. Remember he put Flacco in for like those 2 minutes. Sorry, CT. And then, you know, DJ clearly didn't work. He tried Zeke yesterday. So I think he's trying stuff. It's not always going to work, but he's not afraid to make a move, and that's what I like about him so far.
That was a really interesting and loaded answer. I liked all of your inputs. Yeah, I just think that if the Nuggets made this move earlier, maybe after the All-Star break, maybe even a bit earlier than that, maybe they would have been a 2 seed or a 3 seed, and maybe we would be seeing this OKC series in the Western Conference Finals. Well, who knows? Nobody can be sure about that. One thing that is for sure, and one thing I'm still worried about when it comes to this year's playoffs, the Nuggets just have 6.5 guys, and we just have to pray for all of them to stay relatively healthy, because you know Mike is already like a 3/4 of a player right now, and hopefully they don't diminish from that. Another thing I was thinking about, the Nuggets have won 4 out of last 6 games versus OKC, 4 out of 7 if you want to include the first game of this season as well, and they need to win in 2 out of the next 4 games to advance. OKC, on the other hand, needs to win in 3 out of the next 4, and if I may say so, they need to blow the Nuggets out 3 of the next 4, because I don't think they won another close game against the former champions. CT, do OKC have that in them?
Definitely. I think OKC still has a great chance to win the series for sure. This is a team that's still really talented. They came out and blitzed Denver in game 2 after they lost game 1. You know, it was not even close from the opening jump. And I don't know, I kind of thought Denver kind of conceded in that game as well, pretty clearly early on. But yeah, I definitely think this series is far from over as far as, you know, the result being decided. But Denver's up 2-1 right now. It's better than being down 2-1. So if they can get up another game and try to secure the 2 games at home, I think that'd be great for them going into OKC being up 3-1. But I think, like you said, I think it's a great point that I think OKC does have to like really blow out Denver to win a game. I think if this game's a close game toward the end, I think Denver has the pieces, they have the experience, and they have Jokic and Murray, and Gordon, who's been really clutch over this playoff run. That I think that they have the pieces and the know-how, I think, to really close out games compared to OKC's relative inexperience. I think Denver's defense has been phenomenal, especially late in the games, going against Shea, making him beat you one-on-one. I thought the Nuggets should play more zone, but I think I've been kind of wrong in that assessment, because the one-on-one defense, especially Christian Brown, who I thought was phenomenal on Shea to close the game yesterday. I think their one-on-one defense and helping when appropriate has been really, really dynamic. So I think Denver, if they keep the defensive intensity up and they're able to outpace OKC offensively, that's where it really comes down to, is Denver's offense has to be high powered, but their defense could be, at that level where they can kind of hold on and give enough possessions where they can win on that side of the floor. I think they put themselves in a good chance to win 2 games in Denver and go into the series up 3-1.
Mike, are you still afraid of OKC for their resurrection?
Hell yes. Yeah, I couldn't agree more with everything CT led off there with, and I think, part of what inspired some of the article even before the game last night, this weekend, they were talking about it at the end of game 2, and they talked about it again at the end of game 3, the TV announcers just speaking about the differences between Denver wins and OKC wins, we split the season series, but their average winning margin, I think, was something like 24 points, something along those lines for every OKC win. It wasn't even fully 6 points for all of the Nuggets games that they won. And that's just the type of games that we're going to be winning and coming out of. But I feel equally good about our chances of winning 2 out of the next 4 than I do about them winning 3 out of the next 4. I feel like, just like an even season series, we have put ourselves in the best spot to get out of this thing, if possible, and not be, and God, get home court advantage back for the Western Conference Finals. So let's see where it goes.
Pete, how worried are you?
10 out of 10 still. I mean, I don't understand how we won yesterday. I mean, CT, you'll appreciate this analogy, but what I was thinking last night watching the game, like third and fourth quarter, was this is going to sound disrespectful to the Nuggets because I know they're champions, but it reminded me of an NCAA tournament game where a 1 seed was playing like a scrappy 12 seed, and the 12 seed has like one great player, and they're just packing the paint and hoping the other team misses, and the Thunder just kept missing threes. So I just feel like Oklahoma City's margin for error is so much greater than ours. But as long as the Nuggets can limit the turnovers and the fast break points and be efficient on offense, like Miroslav said, they can stay in there and win these close games, because OKC doesn't want to play like that. They want to just get up and down and blow you out. And, the Nuggets are going to have to keep hitting tough shots. I mean, I thought OKC played really good defense last night, but, we've seen this from Murray and Porter before. It's not like they can't do this, but to get it 2 more times out of 4 games, I really don't know what's going to happen. I'm excited. I'm fascinated to watch this series, but you have to think Jokic is going to play better.
Okay, let's take one more short break, and after that, we're going to talk about something I feel is a key question coming into Game 4. Don't go anywhere. Okay, so Coach David Adelman mentioned that his main priority is to keep his team attached to OKC for the first 18 minutes of the game. CT, what are the key components of them staying attached to OKC and not letting Game 2 happen again?
I think it's scoring. They have to keep up pace scoring the ball. I think yesterday we saw that, especially Mike early on. He was a big component in keeping Denver afloat in that first half, getting him going, running him off flare screens, getting him on the move for shots. And Mike has obviously had a pretty up and down playoffs, to say the least. And it's a shame that he's hurt, because I think he'd be providing a lot more production if he wasn't hurt. But he's playing in the game, so I think it's fair game to critique his game. But you could obviously see like his rebounding is he's rebounding like one arm at this point. But last night I thought he was really good. But yeah, I think to stay afloat, Denver's gonna have to keep pace offensively. Mike was able to do that. AG had a good first half. Jamal, same thing. And even the guys off the bench, I think Russell Westbrook's had a great playoff so far. And I think Peyton Watson's getting better and better as every game has gone on. I really think his defense last night was really good. He had an awesome block on Chet at the rim. He's hitting a couple threes a game, which is obviously a really good benefit since Denver's only playing 7 guys. But I think they have to keep pace offensively. That's the main point for them to stay in the game. Stay there offensively. Don't get absolutely rocked defensively. They kind of switch up the coverages, whether it goes zone. But the man-to-man, I think, was really good. But I think if you could stay afloat until the end of the game, and then clutch time is there, I think Denver has a chance to win the series, because I just trust them in the clutch time over OKC. I think Jokic and Murray there's more optionality, I think, than what OKC can do in the clutch. They just had a bunch of isolations against CB, Jamal, and I just think that kind of basketball at the end of clutch time is something that's pretty volatile compared to Denver has like a formula of consistency that'll work. So I think just staying attached early on in the game, and I think then toward the end, I think they'll probably be able to stay connected.
And in order to keep pace on the offensive side, the Nuggets just cannot lose possessions. They cannot turn the ball over too much we've seen 8 turnovers from Joker last night, and that's a big worry, because this is why the Nuggets needed 95 points or whatever they got from their top 4 scorers. They just needed to compensate for a lot of lost possessions. For both Mike and Pete, what should the Nuggets do to keep to keep the ball safe from the pterodactyls of OKC?
I don't know that there's anybody longer and faster in the league than OKC. So you're going to see a lot of that, especially with the type of chances that Joker tends to take, that Jamal tends to take, that Russ tends to take. As long as they're prioritizing keeping the ball safe a little better than it seems like they did in games 2 or 3, I think that gives us a decent chance. And I think, going way back to something CT said earlier, I also wanted to see a little bit more zone in the mix, but I feel like DA has dialed that right into the right spot of throwing it in just enough to really confuse teams and not give them enough time to crack it. So I wouldn't mind seeing that a little earlier in the game, because I think that's one more way that we can keep them within arm's length anyway.
Pete?
Yeah, I think I don't have a perfect answer for how to limit the turnovers, but what I will say, what I noticed watching our offense against OKC, and their defense is really good. It's legit, but something that's true for the Nuggets against them, and that's true at almost any level of basketball, is you want to keep moving. You want to keep your players moving and keep the ball moving, because OKC plays an aggressive style defense where they don't want to give up anything, right? Like they'll guard you out 30 feet out to the basket, and you can use that against them. The Nuggets got a few backdoor cuts last night, but most importantly, when they were down early in that game, they started attacking the basket, and that's my favorite AG. I know he's added the shot, but I really don't think they have any matchup for him when he's going to the basket. At least getting fouled, getting to the line. Russ was aggressive. We really needed that. As much as we love Jokic, I think sometimes he would catch the ball at the elbow and kind of survey, because that's kind of like how he plays all year. But I really think against the Thunder, that's like more of an advantage for them, because when you're standing still, that is the easiest thing to guard in basketball. Like Miroslav, you, me, and Mike could go out there and play defense if guys are just standing. Like, I don't know if you watched the Knicks Celtics game 2 at all, but it was absolutely disgusting. Like, they did some breakdowns of the Celtics had like 4 or 5 possessions where there were no passes. So I think that was the key, right? So if you keep moving, it's harder to defend that, even if you have a good defense. And that's why the Nuggets won, is because the Thunder went stagnant in the fourth quarter and overtime. And the Nuggets, they've been here before. They know that you're supposed to keep moving, work for the right shots, trust your teammates. And that's what won them the game.
It appears that the Celtics have found a way to possibly win game 3 of the series. I guess Jason Tatum coming with one loose suspender into the locker room did the trick. Jokes aside, I think it's imperative for the Nuggets to be smart, to be clean, as the Adelman likes to say, and just don't let OKC run, because their half-court offense hasn't been amazing at all. They had like a 102 half-court offense against the Nuggets in these first 3 games. And by the way, they have the point differential of like, I don't know, 30 points plus 30 in the 3 games, because of probably more than that, actually. Close to 40, because they won by 43 and then lost by 2 and then 9 points. Yeah, I guess around 30 points point differential. So still the half-court offense isn't all that great. We had an interesting comment here from Vladislav, who said that he thinks Jokic is struggling with fatigue plus his elbow. How worried are we about his disgusting shooting performance from last night? Is it something that will keep us, up all night, or was it just a fluke happening? CT.
I think it's Jokic is going against two elite defenses. The Clippers were an elite defense, and then the Thunder elite defense as well. So game one from Jokic, I thought that was one of the best games I think I've ever seen him play in a playoff setting. 40 points, 22 rebounds, clutch shot after clutch shot. That three in Hardenstein at the end of the game in game one was ridiculous. But I just think he's kind of, I wouldn't say struggling, but I think some of his decision making, just trying to map out where to pick his spots. I think sometimes, I do like him actually shooting threes a lot more, because that stretches the defense out and is able to kind of open the court more for guys like Mike and Murray and AG to kind of operate. So um, I wouldn't say I'm concerned about it, but I think game two and game three were probably some of the worst games that we've seen him play, as far as the playoffs are concerned. But I mean, I trust Jokic to bounce back and able to. I think game four, if he's able to really put together a really dynamic performance offensively, I think Denver's got a really good chance to win. But again, I think last game, having contributions from the other starters was really important, and they were able to kind of bridge the gap and help them win. So, but yeah, his elbow looks to be pretty padded up. I don't know if you've seen like a shooting. He has like a shooting sleeve and then like a pad underneath that shooting sleeve. So hopefully that's not something that's whether it's like a long-term thing or a serious injury.
Mike, what does your crystal ball say about Joker?
Um, I doubt we will see another 0 for 10 3-point game from him. I would be surprised if we saw another 8 turnover game from him. I don't think he needs to be a 44 and 22 guy in every game. We proved last night that he does not, for us to get a win out of this. And I expect him to at least bounce back to a norm. I've got a feeling he's working with that sleeve a little bit, that pad a little bit. I'll bet he'll be a little more dialed in by the next time he's on the floor.
Pete?
Yeah, I have no idea how much the elbow is bothering him, but I'm a big law of averages guy. So I just, if you keep taking them, they got to go in eventually. It just seemed like he missed every one that was like a momentum changer in that game. But somehow the Nuggets, they never got rattled. There was like so many times in that game where it felt like they missed a crucial shot. OKC came down and scored. And as a fan, I'm just like deflated. And I'm so impressed that these players were just able to keep taking punch after punch and keep coming back. I know it wasn't like the biggest or most important win of the Jokic era, but I do think that might be the guttiest win of the Jokic era. Just like how good that team is and how many punches they took and just never got knocked out.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. Game one was probably the most legendary comeback ever because of how improbable it was. You could even say that maybe the Nuggets could have won this game in regulation too. Also, OKC could have won in regulation too. But the way the Nuggets just took that win in game one from the OKC's hands, it was just poetic. It was beautiful. It's as you guys mentioned, it's why we watch sports. It's the things that can happen in basketball probably can happen in several other sports as well, like in football, I guess, when you have those 12 minutes of real action. Is it 12? Is it 4 minutes of real action per game? No,
unnecessary shots fired.
I also think that Joker's 10th 3-point attempt was the closest one to going down. The one that we ended the game on, or almost ended the game on.
Winner, yeah.
It was so close. He's
looked good.
It. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not even sure it was a 3-point attempt. I was pretty sure he had already 10 attempts before that shot. Maybe his foot was on a line or something like that, because I was pretty sure he had 11 misses, but I digress. Okay, I'm going to revise my original prediction for this series, which was Nuggets in 7, because I'm going to just say Nuggets in 5, 6, or 7. I have no idea. I just would you be shocked if the Nuggets win game 4 and then have again with this word discombobulated Thunder in game 5 in OKC? Would it shock you, CT?
I think OKC is such a good team that I think they're probably going to get another game off Denver. But if Denver wins tomorrow, I think they have the momentum going into the rest of the series. Um, Honestly, I don't know what you guys think. I think OKC was shocked that Denver was able to win game 1, and I think that's had an effect on them the rest of the series. They would have come back in game 2 and punched them back for sure, but I just think that their kind of mindset was, wow, like Denver's actually still this team, still this championship level team that we've seen over the last couple of years, but they were able to have the resilience. So much went wrong in that game 1, short rest after the game 7 versus the Clippers. They were able to pull that out. And then game 3 with the execution down the stretch, even like if you look at the numbers too, like Denver got out rebounded by 19 on the offensive glass, 19 more shot attempts for OKC as well. Just so many things went OKC's way, but Denver was still able to have that resilient mindset, being, I think, more honestly mentally tough than OKC, able to go in there and produce. So I think if Denver gets another one, I think that they have the momentum's in their favor. I think then after that they really can shut the door on the series, but I think tomorrow is going to be a pivotal game for them. If they win that one, I think that changes the rest of the dynamic of the series for sure.
So,
I feel like there were signs of this. I'm so sorry, Miro. I feel like there were signs of this. CT, I agree, but early in the season, I guess halfway through the season, we had that back-to-back in OKC, and it felt like a playoff series, right? Everybody was talking about who's going to be the MVP coming out of this back-to-back, and you have that great Shea game followed by that great Joker game. And I still think you're right. I still think after all of that and splitting the series, I think we shocked them in game 1. I think they had no idea that was coming. And I think that shows some of that youth and even that hubris of all of that. I could see us winning tomorrow, and I could still see this going 7 games. It's going to be that type of a series. It's a slugfest throughout.
So Pete, if the Nuggets win tomorrow, is it because their role players are young and playing away on different baskets than what they're used to at home? Or is there a different reason for it?
Well, now that you mention it, I do think the rims in OKC are particularly soft, but that's not necessarily an advantage. Like, that's because it's the same for both teams. The difference is when you out rebound your opponent the way the Thunder do, you get more shots at it. So maybe it does help. I don't know. But no, I wouldn't blame it on that. I really didn't think the Thunder had bad process for 3.5 quarters last night. They just wouldn't make anything. But they do have a couple of guys. I will say that I think the general consensus is that the Thunder play smart basketball. They have a couple of guys who take shots that I think they think they're better than they are. Like every time Lou Dort takes a contested 3, I'm happy. And the other guy that may be surprising to be on that list is Shea. When Shea takes a 3, I'm like, that's a win because he wants to get to the basket and he wants to get to his mid-range. So, I don't know if he made any 3s last night, but he definitely took some when I was like, you had a lot of space to just drive there, man. Like, I don't know if it's cocky, if it's confidence, or if it's just like tired. I don't want to try to get by this guy. I'm not getting the calls, but I do feel like they kind of let us off the hook a little bit.
Yeah, that's fair. And everybody's talking about OKC as this super smart team. I just think they're really, really capable of playing demonic kind of defense and just run from that. Because you have Shea, who is really a brilliant ball driver and not an amazing ball distributor, but a good one. And then you have J-Dub, who is a relatively good shot creator, but mostly for himself, not for the other guys. That is not a team with a lot of distributors. So yeah, I guess if you are able to cut the head of the snake, or not cut it completely, but just wound it enough, you have a chance to play against them, and then just pray for them not to make 23 threes or whatever. Because if they do, there's not much you can do with the shooting power the Nuggets have. Okay, let's take one last short break, and then we'll try to do one more segment that requires much more time that we're gonna have. But yeah, let's try to do it quickly. Don't go anywhere. Okay, we are back. So the last segment for today is called Who Does Stan Stan? So as soon as the news of the firing of Coach Mike Malone and General Manager Calvin Booth came out, my first thought was that this playoff run would be a live audition for Coach David Adelman and almost all of the players on the roster. And I say almost all of the players because I'm not a hot take maestro willing to go as far as trading Nikola Jokic. And I also believe he would he would never ask for a trade since moving is just too much work. It turned out it was pretty on point. I was pretty on point with that thought since Silent Stan Kroenke was in the attendance for all of the OKC games, the series games, and I believe for the Clippers games as well. So let's dive into what he has seen from each auditionee. City, I'm going to give you David Adelman. Have you seen enough from the 13 games he was at the helm of the team to give me an informed opinion of whether he should stay a permanent coach for the Nuggets?
I think that's a tough question because I think he's actually done a better job than I thought that he would do, and that's just because he was just put into an impossible situation with 3 games left in the regular season, then going straight to the playoffs. But I've really liked what I've seen from Adelman. I think he's been really flexible as far as his game plan is concerned. I think the way that he's kind of put the onus on the players now to say, like, you guys are the ones who should be communicating about problems out there on both sides of the ball. And he's kind of given them more of the responsibility, I think, which is interesting. Where I think Malone was more of, the standing of like, he's the coach and, some of that decision making will go through him. But I've kind of liked what Adelman's been, his approach, I think, is a bit different from Malone. Like, if they win the series, I think Adelman's a shoo-in to be the coach next year, deservedly so. But I think he's done as good of a job as anyone could really anticipate that he'd do, with such short window since Malone got let go. So I've been impressed with what he's been able to do so far.
Okay, we need to keep it moving. Mike, what about Jamal Murray? What do you think our silent billionaire saw in these 10 playoff games from him?
I think he has seen some a fair little dose of playoff Jamal, and I don't think he's seen anything that would say that he's increased his value so much that all of a sudden somebody's going to be looking at that max contract and wanting to make any changes. I'd say Jamal is here next year, be my best guess.
Okay, Pete, Aaron Gordon, he was a big concern of mine since he hasn't been healthy all this season and came back from calf injury too soon a couple of times. But he has looked awesome in a majority of these elimination games, and he won us 3 games out of 6 games they won. Basically, 3 of them were won on a Aaron Gordon game winner or a game saver. What do you think our silent overlord see in Aaron Gordon right now?
Yeah, I mean, Gordon is 2 for 2 on game swinging shots, right? I mean, he misses that 3 in OKC, they lose. If he misses yesterday, they lose. And I think it's important to remember that, you started off by saying, like, there's no point to discuss Jokic here. Like, he's not going to trade Jokic. Jokic said that Gordon's his favorite teammate ever. So, yeah.
He said top 5 best teammates ever as well.
I think it's pretty
even a higher praise.
Like, Gordon is pretty untouchable from this team. I think he's going to be here for a while.
That is fair. Back to you, CT. So MPJ, shoulder injury, game 2 of the Clippers series. I actually watched that moment live in the arena and had a mixture of anger and devastation by that moment. He fumbled a very important possession late in the 4th and immediately injured himself while trying to fix his error. But then he was amazing last night, and he had a couple of really nice moments before that as well. What do you think our stealth ruler thinks of Mike?
I mean, he's a Missouri guy. He's got a lifetime contract.
That is a joke, right? There's no way they're basing their decisions on that.
No, that was funny in the press conference. So hearing Josh kind of answer that question. But yeah, I mean, it's tough to kind of really evaluate Mike just because of the shoulder injury, and like he's playing in the game, so like it's fair game to critique him. He made that decision, in playing these games, but without him, I mean, the team is just very, very thin, and there'd be no chance that I wouldn't think that they'd be even close in the series. So even despite him playing on one arm, basically, but I mean, yeah, I mean, I think all options should be on the table at the end of the season, but I think the Nuggets are better with him than I think the return that they would get if they were to deal him. And I don't, as far as a medical perspective, I'm not sure how tradable he really is, just looking at the history that he has. So,
Miroslav,
Yeah.
I add my
Yes.
2 cents on this, please.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. I think last night's game was an excellent reminder that the outside narratives that us fans have doesn't always reach the players, or they don't buy into them, right? I mean, when Nuggets fans are complaining all year about Porter and Murray, it gets very negative. But the teammates and the coaching staff, they're not doing that to the players, right? They're still encouraging them, telling them like they got this, they're going to be fine. The only time players really get on each other is like the all-time example is like Kobe didn't like that Shaq didn't work hard, right? So we haven't heard a peep of that since MPJ was drafted, that this guy doesn't work hard. This guy works hard. He wants it. He wants to be a good teammate, wants to be a good player. And these guys have so much belief in themselves. Like they might hear some of the outside noise, but just like you used this phrase earlier in the show, we were ready to bury him. It would have been easy for him to shell up and quit, right? We've seen James Harden do that every year. So, I mean, credit to Porter. He's not a superstar. He's probably not worth his contract. As a defender, I have no problem admitting that. But the toughness and grit he shows to keep playing and putting it out there for his team when they needed him, you can't really put a price on that because, it's like we talk about. There's 16 game players and there's 82 game players, and Mike doesn't bring it every night, but he's not gonna shy away from the moment and let last night's performance affect him. So if ownership doesn't want to trade him, I don't think it really has much to do with the Missouri thing as much as it does like, he's a champion. He helped us win a championship. He's always been bought in on Denver. So I do believe, Kroenke, that if there's like the right move, they would always look to improve the team. But I don't think that they have the same mentality as like a lot of fans do, is like, oh, get rid of this guy because he's played bad for a while.
And it's definitely a part of this starting five that's been amazing so far in these playoffs. And rounding up the starting five is Christian Braun. He's a definition of a consistent effort. He's also a very smart player and a great finisher around the rim, unless he's challenged by premier rim protectors, and a somewhat reliable shooter. I say somewhat because he did hit some big three-pointers so far, but also missed a metric ton of some other threes. Mike, what do you think our poker-faced supreme leader thinks of CB?
I think that Christian has been a riser all season this season. I think he filled in for KCP admirably, and it was more sometimes the question of who would be filling in for him, basically coming off the bench in a lot of ways. I think his contract is right-sized. I can't imagine they're not going to stick with Christian headed into next season. I'll back up the half a tick and only be the devil's advocate on Mike to say that if they are looking to move off of him, he may have increased his value right now more than we're going to see it at any other time in the near future. So I hope they're all back, but Mike would be the one that would surprise me the least, honestly.
Yeah, that's fair. And City, Russell Westbrook is our sixth real guy. He's been nothing but amazing in this playoff run. He saved game one versus the Clippers, helped massively in every win so far. Well, maybe last night was like one of the smallest chances he got, considering he only played 20-something minutes. And he just generally showed what playoff intensity should look like. And to be fair, he showed the same intensity last October, but I digress. I have two questions for you about the Russ. What do you think he will command next season in terms of contract? And does mustache with sunglasses face think he should be resigned for that big figure?
I think honestly, he'll probably command more than the minimum. I think, especially after seeing his year this year. So I'm not sure if Denver will have to maybe dip into a little bit more money to pay him that to bring him back. I think he's had a phenomenal year. I mean, as a minimum contract, he's definitely outplayed that deal. I mean, it's not even close. And I think his skill set has mirrored more of what Bruce brought in the championship year, as far as a facilitator, a guy who's able to get into the paint at ease, pretty good defensively. And I think they really missed that last year, as far as their series against Minnesota. So I don't know. I think it might be tough to bring him back, honestly, as far as his contract is concerned. I mean, I would be open to it. I actually would be in favor of bringing him back, I think, compared to the other options on the open market. So I would bring him back. And I think, like I said, I think he's completely outplayed his contract. And he's been pivotal for Denver in this playoff run as their sixth guy, because they only have about like 6, 7 guys to really think about it. So, but I think he's been a guy who's really helped Jokic as far as that pick and roll game. And I think he saw Murray too, having another guy who can kind of make Murray play off the ball, and Russ able to absorb usage as an on-ball guy. So I think he's been fantastic this year overall, and I'd be in favor of bringing him back.
Yeah, well, Russell Westbrook earned a lot of money in his career, and hopefully he will not be lured by a Houston offering $8 million per year, what they did with Jeff Green in 2023. Hopefully he can stay for like a taxpayers mid-level exception next season. The Nuggets will probably have to do some machinations with contracts to make that possible. Pete, last guy I want to ask you about, Peyton Watson. He's been playing around 14 minutes per game pretty consistently and showed some very good and some clueless moments as well. He might be the guy who lost the most from Calvin Booth no longer being with the team, but he also might have gained some ground with Michael Malone no longer being with the team. But who cares what this sleep-deprived person from Serbia thinks? What do you think the least favorite owner of Arsenal London thinks of Peyton?
I think Peyton has surprised me in a good way. I think he's actually been pretty reliable in the playoffs. I think even though he's a young player and largely unproven in the NBA, he has been here for 3 years now, seen a championship, gotten to be a part of the playoff run last year, even though he got benched. And what I've seen of him is be completely unafraid. And he's made some big plays. He's made some big time shots. He's shooting with confidence. And I think, I think Russ really helps him with that. I think having a vet like that who's been in the league and done it, encouraging him really helps him feel like he belongs. I mean, these guys all do in the NBA anyway, but I think Stan probably sees a guy that's, he's still trying to make his mark in the league, but he's doing what it takes to win, and Peyton has been pretty vocal about, understanding the opportunity he's been given, about being lucky enough to play with an all-time great like Jokic and wanting to just help do what it takes to win. And I think he understands, like, he's probably not going to have big time scoring nights for this team to win, but when he's called upon, he needs to, just play his role, play defense, take open shots. And I think he's playing his role about as well as we could have expected right now, which is great to see.
Okay, gents, thank you so much for this show. I really enjoyed it. I love the tempo of this show. CT, do you want to promote something before we go?
Thanks for having me on, Miroslav, and great talking to Peter and Mike as well. Always fun time coming on Serbian Corner. But yeah, with the drafts coming up soon, so got a big board coming out soon. It's about that time. So I know the playoffs. So yep. So I got some draft content in the works coming up. So be on the lookout for that. But other than that, hopefully Nuggets can win this playoff series and go on a deep run to the finals.
Pete, when are we going to be able to see you again on a show?
Ooh, that's going to be tough. Maybe I'll get one in this week, but if not, it's not going to be until June, unfortunately.
I hope you will have some internet connection where you're going, so you'll be able to at least, check out the box scores of the Nuggets games.
Oh, yeah. Elon's hooking me up with that Starlink on the boat, so I'm good.
Okay, Mike, I'm not gonna let you be too modest. So I'm just gonna tell everybody, just go subscribe to the DNVR.com and just read Mike every week. He just has this great column about all the Colorado sports and there's plenty of Nuggets content there too. So just go and follow it every week.
Yeah. Ever kind, buddy. Thank you.
All right, that is all I've prepared for you this week, my dear listener. And please, with a cherry on top, take the word prepared very loosely. Be well, be safe, be kind to everybody. Call your mom. And until next week, I'll set you free into the void before the next show with a new greeting. If you come to Serbia and want to shout, "What a great blocked shot," you just scream, "Banana." So until next week, banana.